Okay, with that, I will introduce our speaker, cartoonist, illustrator, teacher, etc., Chris Schweizer.
Hello. Thank you all so very much for having me out today. I appreciate it. So my name is Chris. I am a cartoonist. I live in Western Kentucky, what's called the Western Coalfields. And I have been working at this for about 20 years, this year actually. So in 20 years ago is when I went to grad school for it. I knew a little bit before that comics is what I wanted to do. I had studied art before, along with English and theater when I was an undergrad, but it wasn't until the graphic novel boom of like 2004, 2005 ish that I realized this is what I wanted to do, because suddenly there was an avenue for the type of work that I was interested in. I knew that I wasn't funny enough to do a strip, and I knew that my aesthetic at the time and even till now did not necessarily lend itself well to the floppy genre comic stuff, the Marvel, DC, what at the time Dark Horse was mostly doing. And so I just sort of felt adrift on the comics front. And also being in rural Kentucky, I did not have access to a lot of the independent stuff that was being published at the time. If I couldn't get it at a gas station or the mall, I couldn't get it. And so I didn't know a lot of the independent stuff that was being done. But suddenly, all of this, these different genre works with very different aesthetics started coming out at once. Things that had been serialized over the course of many years were suddenly collected in book form. And so you had works by Chris Ware and Charles Burns and Marjane Satrapi and Seth and all these folks like coming out all around the same time. And I was just enamored with it and realized, well, this is sort of the sort of thing that I might be able to do. And I was on a message board, a comics message board, with a lot of the people who eventually became the first wave of Scholastic graphics comics. So most of us were either in or freshly out of undergrad at the time. And it was folks like Mike Mayhack and Raina Telgemeier and Pat Lewis and a bunch of different people. And everybody was sharing their work. And one in particular that Raina had shared was the first standalone, like very short autobio short story that I had ever seen done in comics form. And I thought, well, I have little stories I can tell myself. I could do this. And so I made a little 6-page comic, and then I liked that. And I made a little 12-page comic, and very quickly I realized that's what I wanted to do. And so that was about 20 years ago. And so I because I didn't know how to do comics, I'd read a lot of comics, and I had internalized certain things, but I knew there was a lot that I didn't understand, even having read Eisner and McLeod and everything I could get my mitts on. And so I thought that it would be worthwhile. Same way as if I wanted to compose music, I'd go to school and try to learn music theory. I figured I would go to school and try to learn comics theory. And so I went to the Atlanta campus of the Savannah College of Art and Design, which was opening that year. My wife and I had been managing a hotel in Natchez, Mississippi, and I had looked at Minneapolis College of Art and Design and Savannah College of Art and Design, and both Minneapolis has seemed a lot more geared towards crafting your own course of study. And I felt like I didn't know enough to be able to do that in any informed way. And so SCAD seemed to have a more regimented structure. And so it seemed like that would be the right way to go. My wife was really reluctant to want to move to another southern antebellum town where she would probably have to work in hospitality again. And we were having this discussion as we were driving past what would be the Atlanta campus on I-75. and saw them putting up the SCAD sign there as we were talking about this. And so we like peeled off the interstate and went up and asked, is there a campus here? And they said, yes, it's just opening. And so we took a tour and started talking to them. And that's where I ended up going to grad school. And I was older than some of the other grad students. A lot of them were fresh out of undergrad. I was 25 going on 26 at that point, which is still young, but it is old enough that I had settled in a little bit and I'd had practice drawing and reading and writing, and I was better equipped to take advantage of the school opportunities that were there. And they were plentiful. We had a 2-to-1 student teacher ratio at that point with the campus just opening. And the teachers were great and they were really helpful to me and really encouraging to me. And because I filled an aspect of comics that they did not have in the faculty, which was namely the writing and drawing stuff and the book market stuff. Most of them were working for the monthlies, and I was working for the book market. I say working because I got my first book deal at the beginning of my second year of grad school and ended up finishing it while I was in grad school. They brought me on to teach in the department, and so I taught there for 5 years until I just wasn't able to balance the scheduling requirements of both publishing and teaching. And I loved teaching, and I had a great time with it, and I'm still involved with the school. I go down and do workshops every now and then, and I do classes. I'll sometimes go in and do short stints at other schools, but generally speaking, I'm just at home and working, and that's how I prefer it. And so my first book, I should have brought them over here, and I will do that. Give me just 1 second. I don't have everything, but I have a few things. Apologies. My first series was the Krogan Adventures, which was a historical adventure graphic novel series. And the premise of the series was that each book was a different member of this family tree throughout history, because I like history, but I don't necessarily like to stay in one era. And this gave me an opportunity to jump from genre to genre and era to era with each successive book. And so I did 3 of those, and I was extremely lucky in that despite their obvious deficiencies, they were well received, and I got some good press for them, and I got a couple of award nominations for them, and that really set the path for my subsequent publishing career, which was extremely lucky. And it is more because there weren't really very many other people doing historical fiction for a kid audience at that point in the way that I was doing it. And I think that it was charming to the sort of people that like that genre. And so I did 3 of those books, and also wrote a series of radio plays that was done by an audio drama company that's up in Toronto, and had a great time with it. And I was working on the 4th and trying to figure out how to make it financially viable, because the publisher with whom I was working did not pay very well at all. And so I thought we had figured out a solution for how to go forward that was not going to put them too much out of pocket, but would make it to where I could, on top of some additional freelance stuff, still be able to do it on a regular schedule. And so the editors had signed off on it. Everybody was happy. And then at what was sort of the last minute, the publisher decided that it was too much of a financial investment and didn't want to do it. And so I ended up abandoning that series because at that point I was doing strictly comics, and we were a single income household, and I had to pick books that would pay the bills. So I pivoted from there to doing a kids spooky mystery series called The Creeps. And that was done with Abrams' Amulet. And so this was my first paid real money book. So this I did with my literary agent, Charlie Olson, got this done. So there were 3 of these as well. This one also had some bad luck in that the acquiring editor. I was very lucky in that this one went to auction whenever we sent out the pitch. There were three publishers that were interested in it. All three were excellent publishers, and I liked them all. But Amulet had the best marketing strategy, I thought, and also the acquiring editor was an editor with whom I had worked before and who I respected an awful lot. And so I thought, well, that's who I go with. And about a month after we went with them, that editor was fired. And about 6 months before the first book came out, the entire marketing department quit, and they did not hire any more marketers until 3 months after the first book came out. So it landed with a plop, and that was sort of a death knell for that series. So I had contracted for two. They did bring on a third, but at that point the book list numbers were low enough that nobody was going to order the third from a store. So that was that, which was too bad because I really enjoyed working on that. And that isn't to say that the series would have done well had the editor stayed and had there been marketing, but without marketing, it had no shot in the kids market. So that was too bad. And so after that, I hopped around a lot and did a lot of, not exactly for hire work because I have the copyright for them, but they were projects that were dictated by publishers. So the publisher would say, we're doing this series of books that is about how to do things, like how-to comics. And we were trying to figure out who could do the car maintenance book. And one of the people in our meeting said that you fixed their car in the middle of the night on the side of the road. So do you want to do it? And I said, sure. And then, there was a history one, and they knew I liked history. And so I did a history comic. And then I have a buddy who works in the mostly monthly side of things. And he would sometimes be working on a project. And I'd say, oh, that sounds neat. Tell him I'd draw that. And he said, that's not how it works. I said, I asked him anyway. And they'd ask and they say, yes, we'd like Chris to draw that. And so then I'd do that project. So I did a Mars Attacks that way. I did just a few things here and there. So for most of the past 10 years, it's been really just sort of journeyman hopping around to different projects. I wrote the Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean series. I did like a Harley story for DC. I've done a lot of stuff for Scholastic Classroom Magazine. I've done, I did a longer adventure or action mystery series with Skybound, which is an Image imprint. And it's been a lot of stuff, and it's wonderful, and it's all projects that I've enjoyed. But it is projects that I have not necessarily felt are reflective of what I most want to be doing. And so in a lot of my personal time, I have taken on projects that are more akin to that, but they're not necessarily comics. And for a lot of them, there isn't really a clear way to monetize those or an end goal. I know that Bill is familiar with some of the Christmas stuff that I do. Each Christmas, I do drawings of different holiday figures from around the world in folklore and just winter people, some of them Christmas related, some related to other holidays. And I post little essays about those. I've also made a really large wooden Santa Christmas set that people can get when I have the time to make them, which I frequently don't, which has the art for the image transferred onto the wood, and then I cut them out, and it's an endeavor. I don't scale things well. I tend to take on properties or projects that for being someone who is a cartoon, one of the things we do as cartoonists is we make work that is easy to reproduce. Theoretically, that is great, and that's what we do. And then I end up doing a lot of projects that are not easy to reproduce, and I don't want that to be the case, but it is what it is. I'll do little historical essays. I'll post those up. I do these little paper figure booklets where I draw characters from, all of the characters who feature in various classic lit books, Pride and Prejudice, Dracula, Three Musketeers. And I'll make little booklets of those, and I'll have those, I'll send those out to Patreon backers and then have them available to buy at shows. They are not a good seller, but I still keep doing them because I don't always have the best sense. And then over the past 5 years, I have been developing a project that is now in full fruition that I am very excited about. That is a comic, and it is a fantasy adventure comic that to me feels more like historical fiction. There's not really magic in it. It's just an invented world that is largely an amalgam of the southeastern U.S., which is where I live. It's where I've lived all my life, between Louisiana and Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia and Florida and North Carolina. It's basically all of those places in a lump, but with swords and castles. And I've been having a great time working on that. And it's been in various stages for, like I said, for the past 5 years. I knew that's what I wanted to do as my next big project, and I've been slowly working towards it until the past year and a half, and then I've been spending all of my time on it, or the majority of my time on it when I'm not procrastinating. When I'm writing, I procrastinate because writing is hard, and I can only do so much of it at a time, regardless of how much I try to sit and power through. And so during the writing phase and the thumbnailing phase is when I also want to be doing these other projects. And then once I finally finish that, then I can sit down and work on just the comic nonstop for days at a time, which is great. And that's what I prefer to be doing. But it's tricky. And so I've been doing that for the past 4 months. I've been doing the final art for the first book in the series. And I'm very close to being done. I'm about 15 pages away from the end in a 200-page book. It's already roughed and lettered. I am now doing all the penciling and inking and coloring. And it takes place in the woods. And I had convinced myself that once I moved into the woods, the coloring would go really smoothly and really quickly. And woods are harder to color than buildings because there's a lot more decision making going on. Which gray is this rock? Which brown is this tree? Which greens can I use that don't pull the eye away from the characters? So I will get the hang of it, but for now, the past couple of days have been the woods, and it has been slower going than I was hoping. But I had originally planned on doing this with a publisher. Every comic that I've done since grad school, when I was doing mini comics, has had a publishing partner. And I expected that this one would be the same, and I gave it to my agent, and he took it out, and no one was interested in doing a series. Like, series are pretty much off the table right now in the comics, in the book market side of comics things. I think if you're doing monthlies, it's a different kettle of fish. But at least that was my experience. And it has been the experience of some of my peers. Largely because people have, since the pandemic, gotten slower and less reliable in terms of delivery, and everybody is gun shy because whereas it used to be an outlier where somebody didn't finish a book on time, now there are a lot of people not only not finishing books on time, but not finishing books at all. And when you're selling something as a series or contracting for multiple books at once, that's difficult for the publishers. So I don't begrudge them not wanting to do a series, but the only publisher that I was not able to find anybody who was interested in doing more than one book, or who was willing to commit to more than one book. There was willingness to do one and see how it sells, but that's the death knell for a series. And I really wanted to do this as a series. So the publisher with whom we were talking ended up being acquired by a different parent company during the, you don't call it negotiation period, during they're running it up the ladder period. And I assumed that meant that project was dead in the water because probably there would be restructuring, acquisitions would cease. And so I started thinking about, well, what are my other options? And at that point, I had done some printing myself on a book, and it was a much easier logistical process than I was expecting. And I started thinking, well, if I do this myself, then I can do it as a series. And that's what I really wanted to do. And so I started getting very excited about doing it as a series. And then the publisher came back with their offer, and I was really taken aback because I did not expect that. I thought that it was not because of the acquisition that it wasn't going to get picked up. And so I talked it out with my wife. I traveled to St. Louis to visit some cartoonist friends and really talk out the pros and cons. Like I really wrestled a lot with whether to go with a publisher for this or to try and self-publish it, because comics does have a rich history of self-publishing. Like self-publishing is great. But self-publishing does not always pay the bills, and I've got to pay the bills. And so, but in the end, we figured, well, this seems like the right thing to do with it. And so the publisher, the editor, the acquiring editor is a longtime friend, and I was really worried about burning a bridge there, but he was very understanding of it, and so we're still on good terms. And we just decided to take a real hit financially and work for a year without an advance or any real income at all. So that kind of makes things tricky. So with the expectation that we would eventually recoup this by doing a Kickstarter and by then having an inventory and having it to sell at shows, and then having that inventory to bundle with the second book and repeating the process. And so I've been serializing the comic online since mid-April. It's called Outlaw's Apprentice. It's a sort of a YA swashbuckling adventure story. And I've been posting that on both my Patreon and on Webtoons, which is a far more intuitive reading platform, and the one that most of the teens are on. So a lot of the teens and young adults I know who read comics, a lot of them exclusively read the comics that are on Webtoons, including my kid. She'll read some graphic novels that we bring home or pick up from the library, but mostly she's reading Webtoons. And so I figured that that would be a good way of potentially building that audience, even though they are not necessarily a purchasing audience. They might be a purchasing audience down the road. One of the things with working for kids or young adults is that you sort of hope that they will come back to you in their mid-20s when they start to have money. And so anyway, so I've been serializing that for a while, and I launched the Kickstarter for the first book in at the very end of June. After going up to American Library Association conference, I came back home and launched it the next day, and it's been doing very well. It is past what we absolutely had to have it pass in order to not be in terrible shape as a result of having accumulated debt for the past couple of months while working on it. It is not quite to the we are comfortable phase, but it is getting closer. And so it has, at least for the first book, proven itself to be a worthwhile endeavor. But it is a project that I'm having an awful lot of fun working on. And it is one that I am really wanting to see my experiences and culture and geography reflected. I think, you get a lot of like Norse influenced fantasy or Japanese influenced fantasy or things like that. You don't necessarily get a lot of Southeastern US influenced fantasy. And so I really wanted to do something that felt very Appalachian. And so Outlaw's Apprentice is my endeavor to do that. And I like drawing sword fights, and there have not been many sword fights in the first book but now they're finally in sword fight territory. And that has been a delight. So that is where I am and where I'm coming from. So far as book stuff goes, I'll hold up a couple of pages for, oh no, I just knocked them all out of the binder. I'm doing my pages traditionally. I'm coloring them digitally, but I tend to work. I spend a lot of time on environments, so that takes a while to draw and to color. And then let me see. And then my characters tend to be a little more cartoony, and I try to sort of flush out the dimensionality in the colors with those. I do all the lettering on the page. I like how hand lettering looks on papers. My granddad had gotten his mitts on an original Walt Kelly pogo back in the 50s or 60s. They had a mutual friend, and he had mentioned how much he liked the strip, and the friend had told Walt Kelly, and Walt Kelly gave him a strip, and we had it in my house growing up, and it had the lettering on the page. It had the blue line underneath, and I always thought, well, that's how it was subsequently destroyed in a house fire along with most of our other good stuff. So that's very tragic, but I don't have it anymore, which is, real heartbreaking. But it was very formative looking at that over and over. My dad would point it out and say, look at that blue pencil underneath. That's how the artist, that's where they solve their problems and figure out like where they want the line to be, and then they ink on top of it. So as a kid, I'd always take like blue waxy Prismacolors and then try and draw on top of them with a pilot pen, and it was not altogether successful, but I still like that aesthetic, that doing your inks, doing your lettering on top of blue pencil. So that's still how I approach things. But that's sort of my long and rambling journey to where I am now. I also do a lot of poster art for like either DVD covers or I don't even know exactly what you'd call them, revival showings of classic movies at different theaters or things like that. I do some toy design. I do some animation design. I really don't like working in animation. Every time I do it, it's a pretty miserable experience. And I always say it's going to be the last one. And then, 2 or 3 years later, somebody says, well, would you want to work on this? It's this thing. And they'll tell me something that sounds too good to pass up. It sounds really exciting. And I'll think, well, this will surely not be a terrible experience. It's always a terrible experience, but I always fall for it. I'm trying to think. Sometimes I do illustration. I don't do illustration stuff very much, but I do it occasionally, like spot illustration stuff. The last of these was I did a series, like a kids book series for James Patterson called The Time Travel Twins, which was with Little Brown, which was like middle school time travel kids, which is why I got tapped. A lot of times, if somebody comes to me for work, it is because it has a historical component to it. And part of my professional and personal reputation is that I like doing research. I've got, research is cumulative. So even though I don't necessarily have expertise in very many areas, I don't have technical expertise in any areas. We're all armchair. If we're a cartoonist, any expertise we have outside of cartooning is probably, upper tier hobbyist at best. Not necessarily. Some people, are also physicists. I'm not one of those people. But I do know how to do research. I do know how to find that information, and I will. And so when there is something historical, like sometimes I'll get called in and asked if I have availability to do that. So, so there are other avenues outside of comics that I do and have done more frequently over the past 10 years or so, but I'm trying to sort of shift my focus back into doing mostly just comics. But if anybody has any questions about anything nuts and bolts stuff, whatever it is, I'm an open book. I'm happy to answer anything you got.
Well, so I got a question. Are you
yes.
using Walt Kelly's method of drawing with blue pencil and then inking over the top?
Yes.
Okay.
So I go back and forth between doing it on the page or sometimes penciling digitally and printing it out in just cyan, like a really light cyan. So okay. It depends on the page and it depends on what I'm doing. So if it's something more complicated that I know I'm going to take a whole lot of passes at, I will do it digitally. So I will draw on I've got a drawing tablet. If it is something where it's mostly faces, I will usually print my roughs out very light and then use a blue pencil to hash in the details in the pencils, and then I'll ink on top of that.
Okay, and it looked like you were working in like what, 11 by 14 paper?
Yeah, exactly, 11 by 14 paper. So part of what I wanted to do with this book is, because it's serializing on Webtoon, that is largely a scroll format reading. People are reading it on their phone, and what had at the time, I think more people are sort of recognizing the issues with this and planning accordingly. But what was happening with this first batch of Webtoons comics that were being translated to print, you were getting all of these individual panels that were being done one at a time on the Webtoons, and they were being collaged into a page for the print editions, but that didn't really allow for directional reading. Like, the page did not ever feel intuitive to a reader. And there would be ways of trying to tweak that, but generally speaking, it was pretty clunky. And when it wasn't clunky, it was because a whole lot of additional work was done after the fact to try and tie it all together. Likewise, people who were taking existing comics that were intended for print and breaking them up into individual panels to put on Webtoons, that was a clunky read too, because the balloon and dialogue sizes would change depending on the width of the phone screen. It would make splash pages difficult. Like, there was a whole lot of stuff. So when I realized that I wanted to do this as a scrolling comic, and I should say I knew how Webtoons was going to work, because I got asked to pitch something to Webtoons. I pitched something to Webtoons, and they said, that is the least marketable pitch we have ever had. Absolutely not. Which is frequently what the response I get when I pitch stuff. Like, I've pitched a few projects, and that have not gotten picked up, and it's always because I'm like, this is about kids staging a play in the Bowery in 1840, and they're like, nope. And so I had looked at the mechanics of Webtoons before this, and my solution for that formal translation problem, because I wanted the comic to be, I wanted to collect it into print, but I also wanted to serialize it on this format, would be simply to not have a translation and to just print it small. And so I did some tests to see like what lettering I could do and what size it needed to print. And it came awfully close to mass market paperback format, like the old Stephen King, John Grisham books. And so I thought, well, that is the size that I will do the comic at. And because it is intended to be that size, the lettering will not be, it's not like it will be reduced to the point that it's really hard to read in this format. It's intended for this format. And so to that end, I'm working on smaller size sheets. So in my 6x9 books and my comic size books, I've always worked 11 by 17. This time I'm working on 11 by 14 paper, and with a live area of probably about, or excuse me, 8.5 by 14, legal size, with a live area of probably about 6.5 by 11. And so it's not quite double the book, but it's probably about 165%, 170, something like that. And so it's as small as I was able to do it before I lost control of the lettering. I did a lot of tests to see how small I could letter before it started looking really wonky. And this is the smallest that I could do. And so it didn't matter if I changed to a smaller pen, the lettering just wouldn't look good. So this is the smallest that I could do and make the lettering still legible. It's not perfect, but it's legible. And I can do, I'll fiddle with it sometimes after the fact, but about 95% of the lettering is as it is on the page, and then about 5% I tweak digitally because I got it a little bit wrong. Like this letter is a little too short. This one bumps up against that one, that kind of thing.
Okay, so when you're designing a project, are you thinking about the phone and how tiny the phone is in the screen?
Yes. So I did with this one, not with every project. Like most projects, I just, I sort of, the intuitive is just regular book size for me. Like I have a sense as to what that'll look like, and I don't have to think about it too much. With this one, because it was going to be smaller, I did think about it a lot at the very beginning, and did a lot of different test things, would scan them in, would print them out at size, would email them to myself so I could read them on the phone and think, this is just feels a little bit too small. This could be a little smaller. And so there was a lot of sort of advanced formal work done just to make sure that I knew this was going to work the way that I thought it might work. And that's not usually something that I do. I will think about the size whatever the finished size is going to be when I'm working, but this is the first time that I had to kind of workshop it to make sure that it would work the way that I intended.
Let's see, one thing you were bringing up here.
Well, I would like to just say that you have got a lot of information in a very short time. Now,
I'm sorry.
No. We're very happy with this.
Oh, good. Okay.
Most of the people you're talking to are professionals. So we do understand the publishing process. We've been through a lot of it. But your emphasis on, dealing with new projects and dealing with editors and also dealing with transferring work from paper to phones to online. This is going to make this a very good instructional episode.
Well, good. I'm glad.
I think everybody's really going to appreciate. And I wish we could have seen more of your work. But
I am so very sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It was beautiful to look at what we could see. We understand. You can't always get everything up on a screen, but of course, when Bill puts up this video, I have no doubt at all that if you give him any kind of links where people can see your work,
feel free to well, then that's a whole editing thing. I was like, feel free to overlay images on the video, but don't worry about that. But you can absolutely find it online. Like I post a lot. It's easy to run across if you just go to my website or one of my social media things. I'm bad about remembering to post to Instagram because there isn't the back and forth that you have with, I tend to post on Blue Sky a lot because a lot of my friends are on there and we just see each other's work and can comment back and forth. On Instagram, it's less back and forthy. And so it feels more like a portfolio. And so I tend to be a lot less cavalier with posting on there. And as a result, I forget to post on there at all. But I do it on occasion. Tumblr I tend to do when I'm mostly thinking about posting an essay of some sort. So I'm not great at navigating the social media landscape. But and I don't like making, I do make videos when I'm promoting something, but I don't make regular videos. And I think that tends to be where so much social media is these days.
Do you have links to all your different contacts? Like
I do, yeah.
Okay, they're on your site, and that's where everybody
they're
can
on my
find
site.
everything. So and of course, then you've got all the crossovers between Tumblr and Discord, and people. One person finds out one, and the fans
it's tricky.
there.
I'm not on Discord because I am a hermit, and I don't. I technically I'm on Discord, but I forget. I log in about once every 6 months, and then I can't keep track of what's happened, and then I leave again. I hate getting text messages, and just having Discord feels like. Having it open feels like there's text messages all the time.
What you might want to do is, and this is something I came upon accidentally, I have a new young friend. I have a lot of young friends because my books are being rediscovered. And that's the other neat thing about this stuff is they always rediscover.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a Discord since 2017, never did a thing with it. And so I threw her at it, and she put in everything. She's got general conversations, music, my series name, everything. And because of the way she's got it set up, people are able to go to each room that they belong in, and it doesn't get confusing and crossed over. So maybe get yourself a youngster that knows what they're doing, and they'll build you, especially somebody who loves your work.
Yeah,
they'll build you a nice little Discord.
I believe. Well, that was one of the great things when I was teaching. Aside from the fact that I was teaching very early in my career, and teaching when you're new is great. I think because you're really enthusiastic, you still understand things, and I think that you still can bring value as a young teacher, but also it helps you dramatically as a working artist, because you are forced to articulate the reasons for why you think something should be done or how it should be done in ways that help you to better understand your own medium. And so that was great. But one of the other great things about it was that the youngsters would say, "Hey, Professor Schweizer, you should get on this platform." And I'd say, "Okay, can you build me one?" And they'd say, "Yes." And then I'd have a Tumblr and have whatever else. And that was great. I do not have that anymore. My kid helps me with some things. Like I'll say, "Should I get on this?" And she'll say no. So she doesn't want me in her spaces, but that's okay. She reads webtoons all the time. I'm pretty sure she does not read mine, but that's okay. That's your own.
She might. You don't know.
Well, I'll tell you something. One of her friends reads it and comments on it, and that makes me very happy.
There you go. She'll drag her into it. I was a bit shocked when I went in and found out what people were doing with my characters.
Yeah.
On Tumblr, but that's okay. That's including the polls. Yeah, you know about. Okay, we won't get into that. This is a family YouTube. It's an awful lot of fun talking to these people, though, because what will happen is on Patreon, people will buy postcards. I know this sounds crazy. They buy postcards, and I'll send them the postcards. Now, only the paying people get to see the postcards, but that doesn't mean they can't make copies of them and flip them all over the place, which is what they do. So they have a lot of fun with that. So I've also have you ever, you know what a flame war is?
Yeah.
Okay. I have just recently invited my Patreon people and Tumblr and everybody else, go ahead, start a flame war with my characters, and you can send them to me, and they're going like, I think they've just invented a Desert Peach Monopoly game, and when I suggested that they use pieces of pasta figures, they started assigning each other roles. You're right. Maybe you should stay off of this. Things can get too wild too fast. Anyway, I'm sorry I did.
No, but that's so much. It's wonderful.
It was a lot of information.
Well, when people engage with your work, like that's so exciting, and it makes it gives you a sense of approbation. It gives you a sense that what you're doing, you're not just throwing stuff out into the void. That's been really nice with publishing on a weekly schedule, which I've never done before. Usually I'm sitting and I'm working on a book, and then eventually I release the book, and occasionally somebody will tell me at a show that they liked the book, and that's about it. That's the most you can hope for, and occasionally mail and things like that. But posting something weekly and getting comments, and there's a section for comments. That's really nice, and everybody talking about how much they hate your villain. Like that, I wanted you to hate him. That's great. That makes me really happy. It makes you.
Then you've got you also get an income stream. Like over the years, my Patreon has slowly grown. A lot of people are dollar people. Some people are $5. Some people are $20. But it's made a nice little check that comes in. Dumped into my bank, and it's really just me horsing around with my fans.
It's great. Patreon has been such a boon to cartoonists, I think.
It's a hoot, and we all love it, and they're very aware of interacting with the other groups. And so anybody who does join my group also gets my Discord address.
Yeah.
And the name of my Discord is Donna Barr and All Her Works. You got it. Anyway, but thank you. That was an amazing talk. We really
thank you so much, Donna. I'm really glad to be able to talk with y'all. Thank you so much for having me out.
Thank you.
I hope that y'all stay smokeless, and those of you who are smokeless, if any of you are suffering the smoke, I hope it passes soon. But for the rest of you, stay comfy. Enjoy your nice Northwest weather. We're pretty muggy here at the moment. So I'm jealous, and hopefully I'll see some of y'all when I'm up in your neck of the woods.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your talk.
Absolutely,
Okay,
my
thank you.
pleasure.
It was
All right.
amazing.
Y'all have a good one.